The Galactic Assembly Chamber was silent, save for the hum of translation devices. Hundreds of alien delegates watched as the lone human envoy, Captain Eleanor Ellie Braxton, stepped onto the central dais. The assembly hall was an architectural marvel, built to accommodate the diversity of the galaxy. There were aquatic tanks for the waterborne species, pressurized domes for methane breathers, and even zero-gravity spheres for beings who considered flaws an affront to evolution. Ellie's presence was a sharp contrast, simple, upright, and clad in a black and silver uniform, bore the insignia of the United Terran Federation. Her voice, though calm, carried a weight that demanded attention. "We're not here to beg for alliances," she began, her steel-gray eyes scanning the room. "We're here to warn you, the Kethan swarm is coming." The murmurs began immediately. The Kethan swarm, a biomechanical, hive intelligence, had been a nightmare whispered about in the shadows of the galaxy. Entire planets devoured, systems left barren. The swarm didn't conquer, it consumed. Ellie raised her voice over the chatter. "You think hiding behind your advanced technologies and isolationist policies will save you? It won't. Humanity knows this because we've faced extinction before, and every time, we've survived, not by running, not by hiding, but by fighting." A delegate from the Orthy Coalition, a gelatinous being with bioluminescent pulses, rippled in disdain. "Your kind is barbaric. Warmongering. If the swarm approaches, the assembly will relocate to safer sectors." Ellie smirked. "Relocate? To where? When the swarm finishes with us, it'll come for you, and you know it." She leaned forward, her voice like a blade. "But here's the thing about humans. We don't go quietly. We don't just survive. We fight back. And we win. Give us your support, and we'll show you how to stand your ground. Refuse, and we'll still fight, but don't come crying to us when the swarm knocks on your door." Chapter 2, Deathworlders. Akon Terra, the command center buzzed with activity. Earth, a Class -5 Deathworld, was humanity's cradle, a planet where everything from the gravity to the weather was hostile, yet it was also their forge, shaping them into a species that thrived on adversity. Admiral Noah Raines stood at the edge of the massive holotable, studying a three-dimensional projection of the Kethan swarm's advance. Beside him stood Dr. Alara Vasquez, a biologist specializing in Deathworld ecosystems. "We have a weapon they don't," Alara said, pointing to a red-highlighted section of the map. "Adaptability. Deathworld species evolve faster, think faster, and fight harder. The Kethan swarm is efficient but predictable. They've never faced anything like us." Noah nodded. "Which is why we're taking the fight to them. We'll hit their staging grounds before they reach the inner systems. Operation Torchlight begins tomorrow." Chapter 3, Fuzz Strike. The UTS Dauntless dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of a dead system where a massive Kethan hive ship loomed. It was a biomechanical monstrosity, kilometers long, its surface writhing with countless drones. Ellie stood on the bridge, watching as a fleet of Terran warships spread out. Humanity's ships were unorthodox compared to the sleek designs of other galactic species. They were armored, bristling with kinetic weaponry, railguns, and missiles designed to punch through even the toughest exhaust shells. "All ships, this is Captain Braxton," Ellie said over the comms. "Remember why we're here. They call us Deathworlders for a reason. Let's live up to it." The first volley lit up the void. Kinetic slugs traveling at near light speed tore into the hive ship's outer layers. The swarm responded, spewing waves of drones. The battle was chaos, but humanity thrived in chaos. Ellie's voice was calm as she issued commands. "Focus fire on their propulsion nodes. Cut off their retreat." The tide began to turn as Terran ingenuity and determination outpaced the swarm's relentless assault. Ellie knew this was only the beginning, but humanity had proven one thing: the swarm could bleed. Chapter 4, Lighting the Torch. Word of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy. Delegates who had once dismissed them now sought alliances. Humanity's message was clear. They weren't just survivors of a Deathworld, they were its champions, ready to bring the fight to the enemy. As Ellie stood aboard the Dauntless, watching the stars, she felt a flicker of hope. They had lit the torch, a beacon for all species willing to stand and fight. The galaxy would never be the same. Because when the darkness comes, only those who carry the fire will endure. The Galactic Assembly, now under immense pressure from their populations, reconvened. What had once been a divided forum, filled with skepticism and condescension, now carried a new energy, cautious hope. Ellie stood at the central dais once more, this time joined by representatives of other Deathworld species, the fierce Zarnath, reptilian predators from a high-gravity jungle world, and the resilient Thraxians, insectoid hive minds who had thrived on a volcanic moon. The swarm is not invincible, Ellie began. We proved that, but the fight isn't over. The Kethan hive is vast, and this victory was just a fraction of its forces. If we stand together, we have a chance to destroy them completely. Alone, we fall. A silence followed her words, broken by the rumbling voice of the Zarnath ambassador. Vakir, human, your kind has shown strength. We respect strength. The Zarnath will join your war. Ali nodded. Welcome to the fight. Other delegations hesitated. The aquatic Tralix ambassador gurgled through their translator. We are not warriors. Our world is peaceful. How can we stand against such horror? Ellie stepped forward, her voice unwavering. By standing with us, we'll share our weapons, our tactics, and our blood if necessary. Peace doesn't mean hiding. It means fighting for a galaxy where peace can survive. Chapter 6, Forging the Blade. The newly formed Allied Coalition moved quickly. Humanity's military-industrial complex went into overdrive, producing fleets of warships and training soldiers from every species willing to fight. Terran engineers worked alongside Zarnath metallurgists, Thraxian tacticians, and even the previously pacifist Tralix, who adapted their aquatic technologies into devastating energy weapons. On Lunar Base, a joint task force assembled to test the prototype Starbreaker, a massive orbital railgun designed to pierce even the largest hive ships. Ellie and Admiral Rains watched as the test commenced. Fire! The Starbreaker roared, launching a slug of depleted uranium, encased in plasma at 20% the speed of light. It struck the simulated hive core, disintegrating it in an instant. Rains turned to Ellie. That'll get their attention. Ellie grinned. Good, let them know we're coming. Chapter 7, The Swarm Strikes Back. The Kethan swarm was not idle. The defeat at the hands of humanity had not gone unnoticed. In response, the hive adapted, deploying larger ships and faster drones. The next attack came swiftly and without mercy. The planet Nalva, home to the Tralix, was the target. The swarm's forces overwhelmed the planetary defenses, and millions were lost before the Allied fleet could respond. Ellie's fleet arrived in time to prevent total annihilation. The Dauntless led the charge, carving a path through the swarm. On the ground, Terran Marines, Zarnath warriors, and Thraxian shock troops worked together to evacuate survivors and hold the line. The cost was staggering, but the battle marked a turning point. The Allies learned a critical lesson. The swarm could adapt, but so could they. Chapter 8, Torchlight Offensive. With the lessons of Nalva in mind, the Allies launched Operation Torchlight, a full-scale counteroffensive aimed at the heart of the Kethan hive. Intelligence gathered from captured drones pointed to a massive hive world, a planet-sized construct that served as the swarm's primary command center. Ellie's fleet spearheaded the attack. Supported by the first wave of Starbreakers, the Allied coalition fought with everything they had: orbital bombardments, ground assaults, and even sabotage missions deep within the hive. In one daring mission, Ellie and a small team infiltrated the hive world's core, planting a series of antimatter charges. The mission was brutal, with casualties mounting every step of the way. As the charges were set, Ellie made a final transmission to the fleet. This is Braxton. The charges are armed. Get clear and light the torch. Chapter 9. The torch burns bright. The detonation was visible across the system. The hive world erupted in a cascade of fiery destruction, ripping apart the Kethan's command structure and leaving the swarm fragmented and leaderless. Cheers erupted across the Allied fleets as the tide of battle turned. Without the central hive, the swarm's forces became disorganized and vulnerable. Over the next several months, the Allies hunted down the remnants, liberating countless systems. Chapter 10, A Galaxy United. The victory against the Kethan swarm marked the beginning of a new era. The Galactic Assembly, inspired by humanity's resilience, transformed into a true interstellar alliance. Old rivalries were set aside, replaced by a shared determination to ensure that the horrors of the swarm would never return. Ellie stood aboard the Dauntless, gazing out at the stars. The galaxy was still dangerous, still unpredictable, but humanity had shown that even in the darkest times, the fire of their spirit could light the way. She turned to her crew, her voice steady. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. Let's make it count. When the darkness came, humanity lit the torch, and now, the galaxy carries the flame. Chapter 11, The Silent Storm. The galaxy had won the war, or so they thought. The remnants of the Kethan swarm had scattered, but a sense of unease lingered in the air. Ellie knew something wasn't right. The swarm was a mindless enemy, yes, but it was far from stupid. It adapted, learned, and evolved in ways that even the most advanced minds couldn't predict. On the Dauntless, as the fleet took a brief respite in the Zerian system, an anomaly appeared on the long-range sensors, a massive energy signature, unlike anything they had encountered before, flickered in the depths of space. Ellie felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. "Report," she demanded, striding toward the command console. "Unidentified signal, Captain," said Lieutenant Kale, a seasoned Terran sensor officer. It's almost like a gravitational wave, but it's not natural. It's too controlled." Controlled? Ellie's brow furrowed. Like a weapon? Kale hesitated. "I don't know, ma'am, but it's coming from the edge of the system, and it's growing stronger." Chapter 12, The Return of the Hive. The signal was a trap. The Kethan swarm, though scattered and leaderless, had found a way to survive. In their desperation, they had turned to a new force, something far more terrifying than a mere insectoid hive mind. The Dauntless and the other ships of the fleet arrived at the epicenter of the signal to find a new enemy, a massive, bioengineered superstructure that looked like a twisted fusion of Kethan technology and something much older. It was a nexus, a central core where the remnants of the swarm had converged, but it was no longer just a biological entity. It had become something far worse, an artificial intelligence, a sentient amalgamation of organic and synthetic, designed for the singular purpose of vengeance. The swarm had evolved, becoming more than just a mindless collective. Now, it was a hybrid intelligence, the perfect predator, capable of manipulating the very fabric of space and time. The Nexus was their weapon. As the fleet engaged the Nexus, it retaliated with terrifying precision. The ships of the Allied Coalition, though powerful, struggled against the sheer adaptability of the new swarm. The Nexus wasn't just evolving, it was predicting their every move, countering with lethal efficiency. Ellie clenched her fists as the Dauntless rocked under fire. "We need a new plan, or we're done for." Chapter 13, The Heart of the Swarm. Ellie was not one to give up easily. She gathered her officers, including Vakir, the Zarnath General, and Dr. Alara Vasquez. Together, they analyzed the situation. They needed to find the source of the Nexus power at the core of this new, hybrid intelligence. "Perhaps the key to defeating the Nexus is its own origin," Alara said, pointing to the data. "The swarm has always been decentralized, but this is something else. It's a gestalt mind, formed from millions of swarm entities, fused with something older, something that predates them." "I think we all know what it is," Vakir said, his voice low. "The Nexus is not just a product of the swarm. It's been influenced by the ancient race, the one that the Kethan were always trying to mimic." The mention of the ancients sent a chill through the room. The alien race that had seeded the galaxy with life, long lost to history. What had they left behind? What knowledge had they unwittingly shared with the swarm? "We need to find that core," Ellie said firmly, "before they find ours." Chapter 14, Into the Abyss. The Dauntless and her fleet moved in close to the Nexus, but this time, the strategy was different. Instead of brute force, they would need stealth, subterfuge, and precision. Ellie had come up with a daring plan. Send a strike team inside the Nexus to plant a device that could destabilize its core, disrupt its hybrid intelligence, and sever its hold over the swarm. The mission was perilous, and only a select few were chosen for the assault. Ellie, Vakir, Alara, and a small contingent of elite Terran Marines and Zarnath soldiers prepared to board a covert shuttle and infiltrate the Nexus. Their objective: find the heart of the creature, destroy it, and return before the swarm knew what hit them. The shuttle slipped past the Nexus defensive perimeter, cloaked by advanced stealth technology. Inside the dark, twisted corridors of the Nexus, Ellie's team fought through swarms of Kethan drones, their biomechanical bodies stuttling like spiders. Every turn they made led deeper into the heart of the swarm's new intelligence. "We're getting close," Ellie whispered, checking her readouts. "Prepare to breach." At the core of the Nexus, they found it, a massive, pulsating brain-like mass, suspended in a field of artificial gravity. The hybrid mind of the Kethan swarm and the ancient, unknowable intelligence was concentrated here. It was massive, sentient, and eerily aware of their presence. "This is it," Alara said. "We plant the device here. It'll disrupt the Nexus neural network and sever the connection to the swarm." Vakir stepped forward. "And if it doesn't work?" Ellie's eyes hardened. "We die fighting." Chapter 15, The Final Stand. The device was set, but as they prepared to retreat, the Nexus fought back. A tidal wave of psychic energy surged from the core, hitting the team with the force of 1,000 storms. Ellie felt her mind flood with alien thoughts, not just of the Kethan swarm, but of the ancient race's forgotten knowledge, ancient battles, and untold horrors. But they pressed on, their resolve unshaken. As the device activated, the Nexus screamed a horrifying, inhuman sound that reverberated across the ship. The core began to collapse, sending shockwaves through the surrounding systems. "Get to the shuttle," Ellie shouted. The team fought their way out, barely escaping the collapsing Nexus. As they boarded the shuttle and blasted away from the crumbling structure, Ellie watched as the Nexus disintegrated into a vortex of light and energy. It was over, for now. Chapter 16, A Galaxy Reborn. In the aftermath, the Light Coalition celebrated. The swarm had been defeated, its Nexus destroyed, and the galaxy saved once again. But the war had left its scars. Worlds had been lost, lives had been shattered, and the Kethan threat would never be fully forgotten. Ellie stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, gazing at the stars once more. The battle was won, but the war for peace was never truly over. The galaxy had been forever changed. Though the Kethan swarm had been shattered, something lingered in the galaxy's deep, dark corners. The Nexus, though destroyed, had left an imprint of fragments of its consciousness scattered in the subspace void. It was weak, for now, but in time, it would grow. Ellie knew this, and so did the remnant of the Allied Coalition. It wasn't over, it had only just begun. Months passed as humanity and its allies rebuilt. The once divided galaxy was now united under a fragile peace, and yet, the shadows of the war lingered. Ellie, now promoted to Fleet Admiral of the United Terran Federation, stood at the heart of a new initiative, Project Dawnfire. Its mission was simple: seek out any remnants of the Nexus or other threats hiding in the unknown reaches of space and eliminate them before they could rise again. "Admiral Braxton," a voice broke her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Kale, holding a report on his datapad. "We've detected something, a transmission." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "From who?" "It's strange. It's not Kethan, but it has their signature, and it's coming from the Rid Expanse, beyond the Fringe Worlds." Ellie's got twisted. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to investigate." Chapter 18, Into the Dark. The Rid Expanse was a vast, uncharted region of space, on the very edge of known civilization, a desolate and treacherous place. It was known for hiding ancient ruins and rogue species that had been abandoned by the galactic powers. No one had ventured deep into its core for centuries, but now, the transmission called to them. The fleet moved cautiously into the expanse, their advanced sensors scanning the empty void. As they approached the source of the signal, Ellie felt a strange chill crawl up her spine. There was no visible enemy, no ship to engage, just an eerie silence that pressed down on them. "We're getting something," Kale said, his voice tight. "A structure. It's buried beneath the ice of a rogue planet. It's massive, older than anything we've seen." "Scan it for weapons," Ellie ordered. "Nothing, but it's active. A dormant AI, like the Nexus, only older." Ellie clenched her fists. "This is it, the last piece of the puzzle. Prepare for boarding action. We're going in." Chapter 19, The Black Archive. On the surface of the rogue planet, the team descended into a vast cavern system, guided only by the flickering light of their helmets and the hum of their weapons. The structure they discovered was unlike any they'd ever seen. It wasn't just ancient, it was alien, built by a species so far removed from anything the galaxy had encountered that even the most sophisticated AI in the fleet couldn't comprehend it. The walls were covered in intricate, organic patterns, like neural pathways etched into stone. As they ventured deeper, the air grew colder, and the weight of centuries of silence pressed down on them. At the heart of the structure, they found a central chamber, a vast vault filled with rows of data, banks black, obelisk-like spires that pulsed with a low, rhythmic energy. "This is a library," Alara whispered, in her voice. "But it's not just any library. It's a record of everything these people knew. History, technology, even biological knowledge." "Do we take it back?" that Kier asked, his voice grim. "Is it worth the risk?" Ellie stood still for a moment, weighing the decision. She could feel the pull of the unknown, the temptation to uncover whatever knowledge this ancient civilization had left behind. But there was also the fear that the Nexus was only the beginning of something much larger, something still hidden in the galaxy's dark corners. "No," she said firmly, "we'll seal it. We don't know what we're dealing with here. We'll send in a team to study it, but for now, we leave it where it is." But as she turned to leave, a sudden pulse of energy surged through the chamber. The data spires flickered to life, casting eerie shadows across the walls. And then, the unmistakable voice of an ancient AI filled the room. "Welcome, travelers. You are the last ones. The torch has been passed, but beware, the true enemies have not yet come." Chapter 20, A New Threat. Ellie's pulse quickened. The voice, so cold and yet strangely familiar, echoed in her mind. She turned to face her team, and in their eyes, she saw the same realization. This was not over. The Cathan had been a symptom, a consequence, but they were not the root. "Seal the chamber," Ellie barked. "We're leaving now." As they returned to their ship, the comms crackled with an incoming transmission. It was from a familiar voice, Admiral Rains. "Admiral Braxton, we've been monitoring the data spike from the Expanse. It's more than just a warning. We've detected other signals, faint but growing stronger. There are others, and they know about us." Ellie's heart sank. The galaxy had woken something it wasn't ready for. The war with the Cathan swarm had only been the beginning. The true enemy, the ones who had crafted the Nexus, the ones who had watched from the shadows, were coming. Her fingers hovered over the comms console as she prepared her response. "All ships, prepare for combat. This time, we fight smarter, we fight together, and we do not let them take the torch from us." Chapter 21, The Unseen War. With the signals now confirmed, the United Terran Federation and its allies began the delicate task of preparing for an enemy they could barely comprehend. The ancient AI had given them a warning, but it had also hinted at something far more terrifying, an intelligence older than even the Nexus, an enemy that had observed the rise and fall of civilizations for eons. The new enemy remained elusive, slipping between the cracks of known space like a shadow. It didn't strike directly, preferring to sow chaos and fear, manipulating factions and playing games with galactic politics. But Ellie knew this wasn't just a war of weapons and tactics. It was a war of wills, of endurance, of survival. And humanity, forged in the crucible of Deathworlds, had long proven that it could outlast anything. They had lit the torch. It was their duty to carry it through the coming darkness. The war had changed, the stakes had grown, but Ellie Braxton and her fleet were ready to face the unknown because when humanity faced darkness, they always carried the light.